Yeah, thank you so much for joining me in my channel. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, whatever time you're watching this, you're in the right place. I can tell you that. I am Adesoya Valentina, you're on educational psychology. This is Learning Mind channel for both the teachers, for students, for parents, all forms of educators. You're welcome here because I will continually feed you on the right information and resources on how to go along your work. I really want to talk about a very sensitive topic for the season. I call it for the season because it is what we parents, even teachers, even educators, because teachers also are parents. They are teachers in their work field, but they are parents because they are married. Some are married, some have children. Educators also, they are parents in their home. And the topic I really want to talk about this afternoon is the sex and the child. Fine, it is not a new topic. Peradventure, you have heard of this topic before, again and again and again. I really want to tell you, it's not a time we need to stop talking about it. We'll continue to talk about it until that parent is safe, because a natural African parent have their own African belief and value in which they follow. They don't want to break out from it. I'm not trying to say you need to break out of your own belief and value, but there's a trend that is going, which is the world is changing. And as the world is changes, it's leaving you back to your own generation. A new generation is being birthed with the way they want to do their things. And you can't stop the world as it is moving. So we have to be wise as the serpents, as the Bible says, that wisdom is profitable to direct. So if you want to direct, well, watch your environment, watch what is going on, and prepare your child for that word so they can be safe. Because they will meet those people there. If you are not able to instill the right information as a parent, when they meet, they become Samson and Goliath. They definitely Goliath will be able to overcome them. So for your Samson to be great and overcome all forms of challenges ahead of them, you need to be deliberate and intentional about this. Sex and the child. Somebody said something while I was having a kind of session with them. He said, before a child ever gets to a school, I think, it is expected for that child to receive crucial and almost irrevocable sex education. And this will have been taught by the parents. I said I agree with you, hook and sinker. Possibly, as I've said earlier on, it's possible you have heard of this before or something related to this. But if not, this is time for a clarion call for you, and a reaffirmation for somebody, an affirmation for another. Every child is expected to learn sex education before the age of 10 years. Why? If I have opportunity to, many a times I go for seminars, I go for teachings, and I tell parents, that is when I go for parental seminars and talk, I tell parents, see, the school has deemed it within themselves. Educationists, education have deemed it within themselves. Ministry of Education have gathered to build a curriculum and a content that will help you to guide your child in school. Even churches are going as far to build curriculum and a content to instill the spiritual life of your child. Why not gather a curriculum for yourself? Create a curriculum. Create a content that suits your parental style and knowing the type of child you are breeding, so that at the end of the day, we have a blessed society. We are all clamoring to have a good, like me, I'm so envisaging to have a good society, whereby you see a child and you say, bless God. Whereby you see a parent and you say, we are all trying, everybody's trying to look for that time to come. That time cannot come if we don't do our assignment so well. So every child before the age of 10 years is expected to have a full knowledge of what sexuality is all about, and it should come from you first. I remember while I was growing up, the best time parents talk about sex education, I think it's 16 years. I use 16 years because it's a age whereby we all graduate from secondary school. And whenever they want to even give us that sex education, it's with injunction, like a command, like a warning. You must not, you must not. Those are the words we heard while we were growing up. But time has changed. If you want to raise up a child in this present generation and waiting till 16 years where you were told about sex tip, sex hints, not sex education, on this present age of a particular child, my God, they definitely, you are not helping your child. You're not building the child you envisage in your heart to build. So sex tip, sex hint in this generation, it's zero. What this generation needs is sex discussion, where you place it on the ground for your child. You discuss about it. Few seconds ago, me and Sonu were just talking about it. If there is no relationship between the parent and the child, sex discussion cannot be freely discussed. I think that is the problem why parents see it so imperative to bring sex education into the house, because they see that they are not brought up with it, and they don't see the reason why they need to instill all of these things to their child. Now, the cost of teaching a child sex education, waiting to teach a child sex education before 16 years, this is the benefit, and it's a bad one. These children, they are exposed to people you don't know. We don't always cage our children around us. They go out. They go out. Like last week, my children were not with me. Although I call every time, but do you think it's enough? It's not. Do I know what he or she has passed through? But a good child that has relationship with his parents will come home and still unwind and give you full gist. That is if relationship is there. If there's no relationship, no child and parent relationship, just that child will keep to keep those things within themselves. So the cost of waiting to teach a child sex education in 16 years is that the future is still far, one, and these children are then to be open to devourers around them. So when you take your time to process, because sex education is not what you just carry out and just bombard and put in the child, and no, it's just a process. It is a process. But when you gradually start taking them based on, we have appropriate age sex education. Now when you start from the child, from birth up through to 8 years, then the child would have at least, if not the practical knowledge, like the theoretical knowledge he or she needs to know according to their age. Even when somebody's strength come to do anything that is against, she will know. Definitely you'll be able to prepare that child for the world to come. You'll be able to prepare that child for the world to come, prepare that child for the future to come. So when wrong thing happen, in whatever setting he or she find herself, I can assure you, like I can achieve not 100%, 90% that child will be safe. Now, I really want us to take you to another thing. We're talking about sex education, Why do parents need to instill this right information into the life of that particular child? Why? Number one, I want us to look at hypersexualization. Hypersexualization. Somebody says something that, does sex education encourage sex? That is a question about the sex. So he or she went further and said, many parents are afraid that talking about sex with their child will be taken as permission for that child to have sex. That is the fear of the unknown. Parents that don't instill this information in their child are having, because their parents too didn't tell them. Their parents who were having those pre-nomination. That is then, olden days. Now in this their time, they find it hard to, instill those knowledge to their children, because they are scared that saying that simply means you are giving the child a blank check to go and have sex. My parents, my educators, my teachers, it is not. The world we hear today is talking about hypersexualization, where children are being exposed to early child education. What talk about early child education? Talking about when a child is exposed to learning from birth till 8. It was never so before. While I was growing up, my father used to say something that if your hand has not gotten like this, education is not close to you. Some people is like 5 years or 6 years. But today from birth says some parents are already teaching their child. The use of touch screen is everywhere. When you hear touch screen, just know that the information is there to be accessed at any given time. So are you waiting for the world, for the society to teach your child? Important fact: children today are exposed to early childhood, as I've said previously. Early childhood has to talk about when a child is exposed to learning from birth till 8 years. So are you waiting for the society to teach your child what he or she is expected to learn from you? What he or she is expected to learn from you. We also have children are generally exposed to some thousands of over-sexualized messages, body touch. So are you expecting the world, the society, for your child to listen to that, or to hear that from the society or from you first? See, when your child hear this thing from you, they are more safe than them hearing it outside them. You know why? Because when outsider expose them, there is tendency for them to be lost on the way. But when you expose them first, because you have a clear heart, you can't sleep with your child, you can't touch your child will be safe. And you yourself will be safe. Because it is and this can be done in a form of discussion. Not as I've taught, I was saying before, you must, not in a form of injunction, but a form of discussion. When you put it on the ground, you allow the child to reflect her thoughts. Because from her thoughts, her expression, you begin to get to understand her own understanding. And it will help you to channel it way, the age-appropriate way for you, for a way you can channel that thing, there will not be any hiccups. Now, nothing could be further from the truth, which is, if anything, the more children learn about sexuality from parents, that is parent teachers, or any healthy materials like storybook, Christian educational materials, the more they learn it, you see that the less they feel compelled to want to start begin to source from information from their own self. So, if you are in a category of parents which are of the opinion, seeing it so imperative enough to set discussion on sex education with their children, I want to encourage you. I know it is not easy because this is your personality, but because of the safety of your child, and that I know you have a very good picture in your mind on the child you want to see in the future. So for the safety of the future that you want to give birth for your child, you need to come out from your shell. I beg you, come out from your shell and let's join this war. It is a war. It is a war now in this time. Oh. It is a war every parent is fighting now to save the future of tomorrow. Do you want to see your child be enlisted among those people they rape? Those people they rape, do you think it is their joy? No, it is not their joy. All of these rape victims we have everywhere, all of these instances of rubbish we have everywhere, do you think it is their joy? It is not their joy. I'm sure if they have this opportunity in their time, I'm sure they'll be safe. And that is why it's a clarion call for every parent now. Let's come out to fight this together, to instill sex education in the life of our children. Now, another reason I would like us to look at why parents need to take up this baiting together with us to fight this is and to instill this sex education. Like those parents that are still finding how to come out from their bottle and from their shell. According to research, today, 61% of teenagers are reported to have had sex before 13. Are you waiting for your child to be listed among those numbers? These things are real. So the only way we can cope that in the next generation, I'm envisaging that this thing should be dropped in the next generation, is that for us to stand up together and instill sex education. We must do this campaign, it is a must to instill the sex education in the life of our children so that we can reduce the rate of teenagers having their first sex. Don't wait for your child to get to a teenage age before you can begin to teach her the appropriate sexuality information. Don't wait, because all of these things are real. For our child not to become a scapegoat, getting involved with this percentage, parents, stand up and let's do this together. And instilling the right information our child is needed to have. Let's do this together. I want to make sure that these conversations of sex education have been had with our children before they graduate to secondary school. Please, let this conversation to set rolling in our individual homes before they get to secondary school. Another reason I would like us to note why parents need to take this up and instill this information to their children is the emergence of sexual bullying. It is real. Don't wait for your child to be a scapegoat in this before you now know that you need to do something. Look at the 10-year-old child that happened a few days ago. Now the woman is like trying to speak up her mind. I don't want to do any blame game here. I'm not trying to blame anybody in this situation, but don't wait for your child to be a victim of these circumstances before you know what you need to do. Okay, lastly, most Nigerian parents that still find it so difficult to instill this knowledge to their child. It is very, very dangerous. Please, don't be reluctant to set up this discussion. When you start, you just start. When you start, you will see that you begin to learn the appropriate age ways of channeling this right information to your children. Don't wait until they get 16 years. It might be dangerous. Thank you.